So, good morning. I'm Ilya Birman. I come from Chelyabinsk, Russia, and I'm an information designer. I love to do user interfaces and wayfinding. This is just one of the user interfaces that I did. I like some complex interfaces for professional use with a lot of data. This one is actually fleet management software for companies that does scooter renting. So this has to do with transportation and also has a map. So I decided to show it here. But also, of course, I do transit maps. These are just some of those, which I either designed myself or directed the design of. This is the latest edition. This is Samara in Russia. It's a small system, just one line, but still it has a lot of love put into this design. And this is a picture from Chelyabinsk, where I live. Our buses are the most beautiful buses in the world. We don't put a lot of these obligatory stickers with, round blue things with all kinds of disabled passengers and everything. We made them all just white. And actually the pixel font on the displays is also designed by us. This is the old font on a trolley bus, and the new one is much nicer. The same thing on a bus, and you can also see the stickers. And of course, I wrote the book, Designing Transit Maps, which was mentioned yesterday with a lot of kind words, which I'm very happy to hear. I will say a few words about the book and then move on to the main topic of why start with a map. The book is like a really, really detailed guide to transit map design. It starts with the history of the maps and the kinds of map we use for different purposes. Then I go to some of the principles of map design, including how do you choose between geography versus geometry, or how do you pick colors and how you distribute colors between the routes and things like that, or how you show hubs versus not hubs and what even is a hub. I cover topics related to layout design, like how to lay out a poster with a map, to the tiniest details of styles of lines and interchanges and labels and parks and street fair zones, whatever you have to display on your map. And there's even a part where I cover some research with eye tracking related to how people scan the lines and what it gives us in terms of label positioning, how to put them in the best way to make sure people understand which label corresponds to which object. And also some exotic ways to display travel information, like this audio version of the Victoria line in London. This is just part of the table of contents. This is less than 100 pages out of 702, so as you can see, it's very generously illustrated. And last year, we finally finished the English version, and we also finished the mobile version. So you can read the book either on your computer or on your phone. You can start reading on your computer, then when you take your metro or your tram or your bus, you can continue reading, and it remembers where you ended so that you continue reading from the same page. Even Tufty didn't get me that excited. It's so nice to hear that. Our friend Ilya, who was speaking in Paris, wrote this, a prominent contribution to the world of graphic design and a great pleasure to read. Actually, when he learned that I would be speaking today, a couple of days ago, he asked me to say hello to Hugh, to Richard, and to all of you who know him. He's now in Australia, by the way. Now to the main topic. So why start with a map? So I love designing maps, so whenever I have a chance to design a map, I would just take this chance. But sometimes a client would approach me with some wayfinding project where map is just one of the possible things that you have to do, and maybe it's not even the first thing that comes to their mind. And I would always suggest starting with a map, designing the map first and then go on to other elements. And sometimes it may feel like if you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. If you like designing maps, you want to design maps, whatever the task is. And some of my clients think that that's the reason why I suggest starting with a map. They know I love maps, so they say, yeah, we know, but maybe we should start with something else. Because designing some other signage may be much simpler. Like if you need to put some toilet signs and exit signs and maybe lift signs or whatever. Of course, map is the hardest thing to do of all of these elements. And it makes a lot of sense to ask this question. From the project management point of view, it may be a good idea to start with something simpler and then go on to more complex elements. I want to give you several reasons to start with a map. But before, I will talk about this map, and it will be my reason number 0, I would say. This is the map that we designed for Tashkent in Uzbekistan. It's a very interesting way to design a map because it has some tricks to combine the geographical map with a geometrical map, because as you can see, the lines have very simple shapes to them. They consist of several straight fragments, and so it's a geometrical map, right? And it even has these central axes, which the green and this yellow line align to. But if you look close enough, you will see that there is a geographical backing, which has a lot of details, and they are not simplified. They're like the way the streets actually run geographically, and it has all the river details and all the strange curves that the streets make, and there is a railroad and everything. But still, the stops, the station exits, are where they are in reality. So the places where the actual streets cross, where the exits are in their correct positions relative to the railway. The trick that we use is, instead of bending the lines to pass through correct intersections of streets and other places in the city, we actually bend the city a little bit here and there and squeeze some parts or stretch some parts so that the places in the city are under the places on the lines where we want them to be. And so we designed this map, we published it, and they liked it in Tashkent, and they invited me to help them with the wayfinding project that they've started. And this is actually a photo with our map in Tashkent. Here are some women trying to find their way on the Tashkent metro. Here's what we have in terms of wayfinding. So here is Alisher Navoi station in the very center of the city, and you see several signs that we've designed for them. So if you start with a map, sometimes it may help you get a great project, and I guess this is my reason number 0. This is not a serious reason because nobody asked us to design this map. We just done it because we love designing maps, and then we were lucky enough to get this wayfinding project. But I have more reasons. So I will go through 3 more serious reasons why you probably should start with a map even when the client already approaches you with a project, which includes a lot of other wayfinding elements. So reason number 1 is that map is a very versatile product. So this is a residential area in Tyumen. It's a city in Russia. We designed this beautiful map of the neighborhood, which includes all the houses, of course, and the yards and the playgrounds and all kinds of businesses that are there. You can see that some of the houses are white and some are yellow. That's because that's their colors in reality. There is a bus stop on the right. There are parking spaces. There are even some birds flying. So when we design a map, we can already start using it as is in wayfinding. Here it's just mounted in some of the elevator halls in the building. So already the people who live there can start to figure out what the businesses are around, where is the kindergarten, where is the bus stop, and maybe some visitors will also see what a nice neighborhood this is and maybe consider buying an apartment here. And we also use the same map in a slightly modified way on this totem. So you can see there's a black and white simplified version in the bottom, along with some other wayfinding information on top. But also, in addition to being a map, it's an ad for the neighborhood. And we can use it not only in the wayfinding elements on site, but we could also publish it online. We could also print some booklets with it. And then it will work as an ad because people who consider living there will see how nice the yards are, that there are some hills and some swings and some trees. There is an underground parking. There are some parking outside. You see what the apartment numbers are. So you design one map and then you have multiple uses for it. Another example would be wild berries. which is the largest Russian retailer. It's like Amazon, but in Russia. They have enormous warehouses, and we designed these very simple but large maps of those warehouses, and we put them on the walls. So it's a concrete wall. This map is like 6 meters high. So for employers who work there, all this area looks the same. So to figure out where you are in this area, we put these maps on the walls. This is another one. It has a different planning, so it has 3 buildings, but the basic idea is the same. So we designed several of these maps just for using on the walls, but turns out we got some other uses for them. For example, this is a card that a new employee gets on the first day on the job, and they need to do some formal papers, they need to get their outfit, they need to go through some training, and this map just shows them in which block what is, where they should go, and we can reuse this simple map for that. We use other very simple maps for the outside of the warehouse. This is for suppliers. You're a driver of a truck, you bring some goods to the warehouse and you need to unload, you need to go to some particular unloading gate. So this just shows the number ranges of the gates relative to the warehouse so that you know where to go. And it also shows toilets, because sometimes you need to wait for a long time, and so there are toilets. And again, we can use them on these instructions that you can print and give to the driver, as well as in this application, which helps you understand where you are in the queue. So when it's your turn to go to the gate to unload, it will show you which gate to go, like this gate 66, and it puts the circle around it, and you know where to go. And it's the same map, of course. And finally, if you design a map, you can print it and put on your balcony, like I do. It makes your the place you live nicer. And by the way, you can see some Russia out of the window. So this is reason number 1. The map is versatile. Design one thing, then have multiple uses for it. Reason number 2 is map is a great tool to learn the area, to understand the area, and then to work with the area when you're designing other elements. The very process of making of the map familiarizes you with the space like nothing else. Even if you have a chance to spend a lot of time in the area, in the building, in the whatever that you are designing, you still spend more time in front of your computer designing things. And you need to have this intuitive sense of the space. You need to understand what is far and what is close. You need to understand which path is the best to take from point A to point B. You need to understand whether some sign will be visible from some particular spot or not. And to internalize this understanding of the space, I think the best way is to actually draw this space for yourself, because when you're drawing it, you come up with some questions which don't arise in your head when you're just walking around. And also, when you have a map, you will use it for all kinds of analysis, like this simplified version of that two-man neighborhood we used to analyze some traffic flows. This I stole from Hugh, showed it yesterday, and he said that he wasn't sure whether this is useful by itself to the passenger because of this enormous level of detail, but it is definitely useful for planning and for understanding the system. And of course, if you spend this much time to design this map, now you understand the network very well. And I don't know any other tool for a designer to get this understanding of a network other than drawing it in all the detail. Also, you can use it for information planning. So how to design this sign. This one is from Tashkent again. This is the photo. On the left, you have this Mustaqilik Square, which is bigger, and Eternal Fire, which is smaller. And on the right, you have some Youth Art Center on the right, which is bigger, and National Library, which is smaller. The question is, how do you decide which points of interest, which landmarks, which objects to put on this sign? And also, by the way, this says exit 2 and 3, this says exit 1. Who gets to decide which exit is 1, 2, or 3, how to come up with this numbering strategy? You cannot do this just looking at this one sign. You need to understand the whole thing. And then you will have to decide how to design several signs. Like in this case, there are some exits on the left with some objects. There's something on the right.
along the way to your exit, you will have to put many other signs, and they have to make sense altogether. It cannot be like you follow this sign for Amir Timur Square, and then when you exit the platform, you have some other list of objects, or maybe they are prioritized in a different manner when you are on an escalator or somewhere else. So of course, with each station, when we design the wayfinding system, we start with a map of the neighborhood. And you can see this is this neighborhood of Amir Timur Square and Yunus Rajabi. This is this Soviet standard where you have a hub, but the stations on different lines have different names, which is crazy, but what can you do? And so we put a lot of detail here. We put all the street names, all the points of interest, all the buildings. And here we also can decide how to put numbers on these exits, because we see what makes sense. What could be we do? Well, we could make them like 1, 2, 3, 4 from top to bottom, but this will be bad because at the very center where it says you will have exits 1, 2, and 4 to the left and 3 to the right, which is not nice. You want them to be like in ranges which have no holes in them. So we need to see what it is like. We need to understand what it would be like to go through all those corridors, even to put the numbers. Then we need to understand which places are more important and which places are less important. And so we have these two font sizes for them. And of course, we could have some Excel spreadsheet with some priority 1 and priority 2 and have this list of all the objects in the city and then send them to some authorities to sign these priorities, and nobody will understand what that means. But when you show this on the map to all the people who are involved in this decision making, it's very easy to understand. Everyone who lives in Tashkent, they know which buildings are more important and which buildings are less important, or maybe some buildings are not important but are very recognizable. So people never go to those buildings, but they see those buildings and they know how to orient themselves when they see them. So we want to put them in a bigger font. The same goes for streets. Some streets have bigger fonts, some streets have smaller font, again, depending on how important they are. And then this information goes directly to those other signs that I showed you. And also, the pedestrian crosswalks. Why would we put even this detail before we design other signs? Well, that's because that can influence how we manage the passenger flows. For example, normally you would want to go out from the metro to the city as soon as possible and walk not in some corridors underground, but above the ground. And so if you're going to this Amir Timur Square and you are where it says you with this black arrow, the most natural way would be to go to exit 4 because it's just to the right. You can see the stairs. So why not go there? Well, because there is no crosswalk. Because if you exit here, you will have to go around to that Amir Timur Avenue and cross there, which is not close to you. So it's actually better to make you go to the left all the way to exit number 1. And to know that, you have to understand where the crosswalks are. So we put them on the map also. And then we can use all this information to design other signs. And so then we can use this map as it is on this large products, of course. As I said in my reason number 1, you can just use it. But also you can use the information from it to finally know the exit numbers, the priority of landmarks, and things like that. And of course, we need some maps for placement planning. When we design all the elements with all the information, we need to explain to some workers who will install all these signs where to put them. And we need some map to put them on. So we had to do maps of every station to just position the signs correctly on that station. And again, with the case of Wildberries, I've shown you several very simple maps, but we have very detailed maps also. So this on the left is the whole warehouse in Koledino village in the Moscow region. And on the right is the plan of one block of that warehouse. So if you look closer, you will see that it's in Russian, but nevertheless, you can see that there are some areas related to sorting, to pre-sorting, to repacking. There are unloading gates on the bottom. There are, of course, toilets and some other things. And this gray part on top is actually a 6-story mezzanine where they store the goods. So if you look closely, you will see that every single shelf is drawn there. And you can print them to put any kind of information on them just with a pen. And also we put them just so that the employees can understand what this block is like. And on top, of course, you see the simplified map, which we've seen before, to help you understand what part of the large warehouses is shown on this detailed map. Okay, so we have this map. By the way, this is in Kazan. It's a simpler warehouse, which has just 4 blocks, but we also have these simplified maps on the walls. But in addition to maps, we of course have other elements of wayfinding, like these cubes, which helps you understand where which area is. And these suspended signs, in this case, they are suspended above the gates, but they can be used elsewhere. And again, when we design the signs, we need to then install them in correct places. So as an instruction to the workers who will go install the signs, we use our detailed maps as a backing here, and then we put these signs on that backing with explanation of where to put which one. And this is for outside signage. These are ranges of the gates. So reason number 2 is having a map helps you first understand the space and then work with the space with all these things that you need to do. And reason number 3, of course, is the one I love most, is map is the source of style for all the elements that you do. The map is the hardest thing to do, that's right. And that's because the density of design decisions that you have to make designing a map is like much, much higher than in any of other elements. You have to come up with all sorts of typography, iconography, color, texture, the way you bend the curves, everything. And you have to find all those elements in such a way that they fit each other, that they work well with each other, they don't conflict with each other. You cannot do this with separate elements. You have to do this in one element, and map is, of course, that element. If you need to design just one sign like this, you can make it like out of any font. You can use any color, any materials, any size, any alignment, any style of arrows, anything, and it will still be fine. But if you need even 2 signs, you will need to somehow harmonize them. But if you need 1,000 signs or more, you will need a very robust design system or a brand book or whatever you call that, some kind of rules to do this. And the map is a great source of those rules. This is a very simple project. This is a small water station on one of the lakes in Chelyabinsk region. And this map, we made it just so that people who come there can understand what to do. It's really hard to be lost in this area. It's very small. You can go around all of this in 10 or 15 minutes. So the reason to draw this map is just to get the people to understand what is there. It has a beach, it has some camping area, it has some barbecue area, some small fortress even for some reason, and a cafe. So we put all of this in this map. We try to make it beautiful. And then when we have done all these icons and typography, it's very easy to design other elements, like the sign at the entrance. You can see we reused the icons. There are some posters there, and again, we can reuse the same typography, the same style of lines. And if we need color, we can just take the color with an eyedropper from the map. And again, in the case of this neighborhood in Tyumen, you can see that we use 2 font styles. One, this all caps, more blocky type of font for streets and for some very important areas like the sport zone and the central alley, and of course building numbers. And then we can reuse the same typography on this totem, the same style for arrows and everything. And on the right, where you can see the close-up of an actual house, note that we have 2 width of the stroke to draw the building. And also we have this particular style for entrances. And then when we make this number plates for the houses, we can reuse the same design language. So this is house number 22, but we decided to also help you understand at which part of this house you are relative to the entrances. And so we can just use these thicker lines to outline the house and this thin line to explain where this fence is. And of course, the same font for the number. And then you get this number plate, which works well with the rest of the system. And again, in case of Tashkent, you can see that there's so many little details here. The icons, the fonts, of course, but also the lines themselves, they have some particular style to them. You can see that the transfers have this very peculiar shape to it. The stops that are not transfers, they're not just rectangular ticks, but they have also some kind of shape to it. And then we can reuse all of that in other elements, like these elements which list the stations that are on the same line. Of course, we reuse the same font, the same icons, the same style of line. Actually, it's just a list of lines. So you could use any font, any distance between them, any kind of alignment, whatever. You can design it in Microsoft Word. But you want to make it look beautiful, and you want to make it look consistent with the rest of the system, and you want it to look native to Tashkent. So you take all those branding from the map. So in case of some other project, you would need to have a brand book. In our case, the map is our brand book. And you can notice that the line style is copied here. And even the terminal station, it uses this like T-shaped ending, but unlike in other systems, we actually make it asymmetrical so that it still points to its label. And we do the same on this vertical lists. And you can notice that Chorsu has this pictogram, and it's used in this list also. And then we reuse the same design language for these suspended signs, which welcome you to the platform. And again, it reuses the icons, the line numbers, and this is what it all looks like together. And this beige background that we have on the signs is, of course, taken from the map. And the beige background on the map is there because we wanted to have this street grid, and we wanted to make it white. So we had to have some background that is not white on the map. And this led to this idea that everything that has to do with the metro network has to have the beige background, but everything else will use white background. So in this case, you can see that the map is on this beige background, but the streets are white, and the regulatory information is on white background. And here you can see the sign on the track wall, which lists the following stations, and on the beige background, but the exit sign is on white, because the objects that are listed on that sign have nothing to do with the metro network. It's some buildings outside. But the transfer part, you can see that there is a transfer to Yunus Rajabi station. It's again on the beige background because it's the name of the station in the metro. So we didn't have to invent this. It just came naturally from the design of the map. The third reason is that when you have a map, you can use it as a sort of style. You don't need any brand book. You don't need to invent something else because you have all the meat that you need to prepare all the other elements already done. So these are my 3 reasons. The map is really versatile. Even by itself, if you design a map, you can already use it as it is in many places. Number 2, if you go on and design other elements, other signage, the map is a great tool to understand the space and work with the space, and just to come up with the information that you need on the other signs. And then when you have all the information and you need to style that information, you need to design the actual layouts to print, again, the map is your best friend to actually make these things look beautiful and consistent. And so if you design a beautiful map, then you just reap the benefits and you just enjoy the rest of the work because you have everything you need to just do it. So that's it, and thank you for having me.